Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on securing, streamlining, and auditing your enterprise file transfers. My name is Bob Libby, and I am the Chief Architect for Linoma Software. I've been in IT for 30 years and have spent the last decade in designing encryption and file transfer solutions. As a certified information systems security professional, I also consult with organizations on how to best protect their sensitive data assets and achieve regulatory compliance. I'm joined by Steve Libby, who serves as Director of Engineering here at Linoma, with expertise in developing managed file transfer and encryption solutions on a wide range of platforms, including Windows, Linux, and IBM i. Steve leads our Go Anywhere product development team, which is located right here in Nebraska. So our agenda today starts by looking at the challenges many organizations are facing with their enterprise file transfers. Traditional tools and homegrown scripts are no longer simply viable options for keeping up with the latest business demands and security requirements. During this webinar, I will explain what managed file transfer is, otherwise just known as MFT, and why it's becoming so popular for organizations. I'll explain the main benefits of MFT, including how it can be used to protect and automate your batch file transfers, as well as how it can be used by your end users as a secure alternative to email and file sharing cloud services like Dropbox. We'll also discuss how managed file transfer generates the detailed audit logs and alerts you need to comply with PCI, HIPAA, and other regulations. Steve will then give you a live demonstration of the latest version of our managed file transfer solution called Go Anywhere, and we'll explain how it can help you configure, secure, and audit your file transfers from a central dashboard. We'll have time at the end of the webinar to answer any remaining questions that you have. Again, those can be entered into the control panel. All right, so let's move on to just a quick background on our company. Linoma is based in Nebraska, and we've been in business for over 20 years. We've made Inc. 5000's list as one of the fastest growing private companies for the last 3 years in a row, and we're proud to achieve an almost 99% customer retention rate, which we believe is a testament to the excellent products and service we provide. We are a division of Help Systems, which has almost 500 employees and over 10,000 customers around the world. Linoma has partnerships with major operating system providers like IBM, Microsoft, and Red Hat, allowing us to gain access to the latest releases and technical resources for testing and support. And as a member of the PCI Security Council, we keep up to date with the latest standards and ensure our products stay compliant. We would also like to mention that Help Systems offers a wide range of solutions, including operations management, business intelligence, document management, as well as other cybersecurity products like event monitoring and compliance reporting. And you can reach out to us if you would like any more information on these solutions. Here's a quick sample of our customer list, and as you can see, we have customers in a wide range of industries, and almost any size company can use our solutions, from smaller IT shops up to Fortune 500 companies. And if you'd like, we can give you reference accounts in your industry or within your geographic location. All right, so let's move on with the presentation. So let's talk about the challenges that your organization might be facing with your file transfers. A lot of IT departments are using older technology and a variety of legacy tools to transmit files. Many companies don't have the good error alerts when transfers fail, and some have to wait for their trading partners to call them to let them know they did not receive the file. And also missing is detailed audit logging needed to meet compliance requirements like PCI or HIPAA. For instance, can you quickly find out which files left your organization over the last day, week, or month? To add to these challenges, many end users are still sending files through unsecured email or cloud services like Dropbox without any controls or centralized management. A lot of organizations are still using PC-based tools to transfer files, and since this is often a manual process, it's prone to human error and risk. What if the user downloads or uploads the wrong file? Or what if the file contains sensitive data and the user forgot to encrypt it before the transmission? And so these are all issues that need to be addressed. You jeopardize sensitive data by downloading it from a secure corporate server to a less secured PC or laptop for transmission, making that data much more vulnerable to attacks. With PC tools, there's often no logs of where the files were sent, and this is becoming a real issue with auditors since many organizations cannot tell them what sensitive files are leaving their network. And because of these vulnerabilities, it's become really difficult to meet compliance requirements using PC-based tools and manual processes. And so in order for companies to automate file transfers, many have built FTP scripts over the years to do this automation of their batch-oriented type transmissions. And unfortunately, these scripts have a lot of downfalls. For instance, FTP scripts can only be written by programmers, which are a very expensive resource. So every time something changes for the trading partners, such as their, let's say, IP address changed or a password changed or a file name changed, the programmer has to get involved to make those changes. And these costs can really add up over time and distract them from other priority projects. A big problem with FTP scripts is that your trading partner's passwords are often stored right in the clear within those scripts, which can make your partner's servers very vulnerable to attacks. Many scripts are very basic in nature and were not programmed to have advanced file transfer capabilities like auto retry, alerting for failures, and they especially lack audit trails specifically, which is why a lot of organizations have been looking for alternatives to this legacy approach. So managed file transfer, again also known as just MFT, is a solution that allows organizations to control and secure their file transfers through a centralized framework. MFT covers all aspects of file transfers within your enterprise and with your trading partners, including batch transfers between systems, as well as ad hoc file transfers between individuals. MFT provides the automation you need for your transfers, protecting that data with strong encryption while providing the audit trails you need for compliance and strict regulations. So what are the things you should look for when looking for the right MFT solution? Well, I have the three top things I believe you should evaluate. First of all, you need to make sure the MFT solution is easy to use. You should be able to set up new transfers in a matter of minutes, not hours. And no programming or special skills should be required. If it's too difficult to use, it will not be accepted by your IT group and end users. Number two, you should make sure the MFT solution has centralized controls. It should be run natively on your internal server and only be accessed by authorized administrators. And there should be good security so you can precisely control what users can connect to which servers and perform just certain file transfer functions. And then number three, you need to make sure the MFT solution has really good auditing and alerts. You should immediately know when transfers fail and should be able to quickly report on transfer activity for a given user, date range, or file name. And this is critical for compliance requirements. So that leads us into our Go Anywhere solution, which we believe is the best enterprise-level MFT solution in the marketplace. And here's a diagram that gives you a quick top-down view of its capabilities. It can be installed onto almost any operating system, including Windows, Linux, IBM i systems, Unix. We even have customers running Go Anywhere in Amazon cloud services. And all administration can be performed for Go Anywhere right through the browser. So it's very flexible in where it can be deployed. With Go Anywhere, you can use it for not only your internal communications between systems, but you can also use it between users to exchange files instead of using email or tools like Dropbox. And then as illustrated here, you can use Go Anywhere to connect out to your trading partners as well as to allow them to connect to you to upload and download files through the centralized framework. All right, so let's get into a little more specific details about Go Anywhere. Listed down below are all the different protocols that Go Anywhere supports. So Go Anywhere can connect out to all of these various systems. You do not have to install any agents on those systems since Go Anywhere connects to the systems using standard protocols. So many companies need to do secure FTP. So we support SFTP for FTP over SSH, as well as secure copy over SSH, as well as FTP over SSL. The product also supports standard FTP for some of your legacy transmissions. So all of the various flavors of FTP are supported in GoAnywhere. GoAnywhere can also connect up to other file systems within your network. So we can honor any existing map drives or UNC paths that you have, but you can also set up dynamic network shares in GoAnywhere to connect out to other servers, let's say other Windows, Linux servers, IBM i systems, and you can use the product to then interact with those systems to orchestrate file movement within your network. You can also connect out to Amazon S3 buckets and web DAV services if you have external storage locations that you'd like to store files. GoAnywhere can connect up through AS2. It can connect up through traditional web services, as well as it can do standard HTTP/S type calls to post and get information. GoAnywhere can connect up to backend database systems. So we ship the drivers to connect up to all the popular databases, including SQL Server, DB2, Oracle, and so on. And you can use the product to actually extract data out of your databases and transform that information into other formats. So GoAnywhere can convert data to CSV file format, fixed width, XML, and Excel file formats. It can also parse out those documents and import those into those databases. So really any SQL that you're authorized to in those databases, you can embed within GoAnywhere to run as part of an overall workflow. GoAnywhere can also call out your existing application. So perhaps after a file has been transferred or before that transmission, you may want to call out one of your existing programs to pass in parameters to have it do some post-processing or pre-processing of those files. And then finally, GoAnywhere can connect up to your email servers to send out transmissions. So we can send out files as traditional email attachments, or GoAnywhere can strip those attachments and turn those into secure HTTPS links. So then that way, if you have big files that need transmitted or sensitive data, that will not go through traditional email, but over the HTTPS instead. GoAnywhere can also process inbound email. So if you're expecting, let's say, updated pricing from vendors or other attachments, we can watch for just certain accounts with certain messages, and we can absorb that message, break it apart, and import that into your database if you'd like. So here's all the different connectors that come with it down below here, and then you can set up multi-step workflows to interact with those servers to push and pull files as needed. As part of that, GoAnywhere has open PGP encryption. It can encrypt, decrypt, sign, and verify files using the open PGP standard, which is compatible with GPG. GoAnywhere can also compress and decompress files. We support the ZIP 2.0 standard, gzip, and tar for packaging and unpackaging files. Now, once you set up your workflows, there's several ways that you can run those. Steve's going to show that to you in a little bit. So GoAnywhere has its own built-in scheduler, first of all, that you can use to run these jobs. And those can be run by the minute, hour, day, week, or month. You can also set up custom holiday calendars where you can skip certain days of the year that might be your corporate holidays or run the day before or after. But if you'd like, you could use our commands from your own applications and schedulers to run jobs in GoAnywhere. So we give you that flexibility. We have commands for Windows, Linux, Unix, IBM i systems. We have APIs for RPG, Java, .NET. And so you can use those commands and APIs to kick off workflows in GoAnywhere. So that way you'll still have that centralized location for all controls and auditing, but still have that flexibility to run those jobs from your own applications. GoAnywhere can also watch folders. So you could have it watching folders on, let's say, a Windows server or Linux, or perhaps an IBM IIFS folder. And as soon as files appear in those folders that meet your file patterns that you're searching for, we can immediately process those files. And so, and it's got the intelligence built in to know when those files are truly available. So we can either get a lock on those files, or we can do what's called a secondary snapshot, in which case we can check to see if the timestamp and the size of the file is changing. That way we won't grab a file that's still being written to by your applications. So that's on the scheduling and workflow automation side. Now you can also use our SFTP and FTPS server that's built in GoAnywhere to allow inbound connections from your trading partners. So they can connect into the product, and they can drop off files, pick up files from those folders that you authorize them to. So GoAnywhere has a full-blown user management system built in to let you set up your trading partner accounts what folders they have access to, what IPs they can log in from, and so on. And then you can authenticate those users against either our database or against Active Directory or LDAP. And if they're coming in through our browser-based interface, they can also use a third-party authentication like RSA, or they could use other products to do that authentication if you need two-factor, for instance. So we have a web-based interface that allows them to just connect in through the browser. They do not need to install anything on their desktop to quickly upload and download files, which is great for ad hoc type-oriented transfers. And then you can set up triggers so as soon as they upload files to you, no matter if it's through SFTP, FTPS, or HTTPS, and those triggers can automatically kick off workflows to automatically process those files. You can also send out alerts when files arrive. But you can also use alerts to let you know when there's any problems. For instance, maybe there's login failures in the product. You can immediately alert one of your administrators about that. Or perhaps you're trying to connect out to one of these systems down below, and if there's a connectivity issue, well, first of all, we do have auto retry, so we can keep trying that system up to a period of time, and you can set the threshold for the number of retries. But if we still can't connect, we can try alternative servers that you can have configured, or you can have it send out like an email or a text alert. We also have a syslog feed, so if you have a central syslog server there, we can feed errors and warning messages off to that centralized system. Now, everything is going to be audited in the product. All file transfers, no matter inbound, outbound, batch, or ad hoc. It doesn't matter. All those will be logged in our central database. We do ship a database with our product that you could certainly use, or you could use your own database server. We support SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, and DB2, and we have a migration wizard where you can migrate our tables to your database, and that will allow you to run queries on our tables if you want to directly access our audit information, or if you'd like to use your current backup tools to back up our tables as needed. So again, everything's audited. You can set the retention period. You can keep audit logs for several months or several years. That's up to you. We can automatically purge those logs once they hit that threshold. Okay, just a couple more things to cover, and then we'll show you some screens. So again, GoAnywhere is multi-platform. So here's a quick list of all the platforms you can install to. You can use the product for batch and ad hoc transfers. Everything's audited. We got that browser-based interface for all administration in the product. You can configure it for inbound services. We have the key management tools built in, so you can work with your PGP keys, your SSH keys, and certificates. You don't have to use a separate tool to do that. It's all integrated. And you can just designate certain individuals that are allowed to do key management and other functions in the product. You can encrypt files at rest through the product. So as soon as maybe files land in from your trading partners into staging folders, those files can be automatically encrypted with AES-256-bit encryption. When those files are then accessed by one of your applications or users, if they're authorized, we can automatically decrypt those files. So it's going to be transparent to your trading partners and your applications. Now, we talked a little bit about security controls. So you can have multiple administrators in GoAnywhere. Each administrator can have different levels of permission. And so you could have some administrators that can, let's say, only look at the audit logs in the product, others that can set up new keys, others that can set up new trading partners. There's about 13 different levels you can configure per administrator. Now, on the ad hoc side of things, if you're looking for a replacement to a file sharing service like Dropbox or Box, GoAnywhere can serve as your private cloud. So it can actually let you choose the data store location for your files. So this could either be on your network or in an Amazon encrypted area, and then all of your users could share files back and forth like they're used to doing through one of those services, but you keep control over those files. You have control over what those users can do within the system. So it's really becoming popular as an alternative to those other services. Now, for your trading partners, of course, they can come through that branded web interface. So you can put your corporate logo on the web interface. You can put your own privacy policy. So it really does look like a nicely branded interface for file transfers. Files can also be synchronized between other systems. So just like Dropbox lets you install a client on like Windows or Mac OSs, or maybe on your mobile desktop, you can also use Go Anywhere to do that synchronization, where you can have files synchronized between different devices. You could choose to shut that off if you don't want that security concern of those files leaving your network, or you can choose on a per-user basis. Go Anywhere also has that secure mail that we talked about, where you have the secure email links that can be sent out, and that includes the Outlook plugin, so your users could just compose the email through Outlook like they're used to, and then we have a new button in Outlook where they can click that, where it will strip the file attachment and send out a secure link to that file. We talked briefly about two-factor authentication. So we support several different techniques for authenticating users. I know that's becoming really important for a lot of companies, especially under PCI requirements, that you need that two-factor for both administrators and your end users. There is a DMZ gateway component that you can use for Go Anywhere. So if you are going to allow inbound connections into your network, you could put our gateway on a Linux or Windows server in the DMZ, and then that will proxy connections into Go Anywhere where your actual services will live. And the way we architect this control channel, we actually open it up from the private network to the gateway at startup time, so no inbound ports need to be opened into your private network. Since your services will live in your private network, all of your files can stay in that area. You do not have to store any files in the DMZ. So this would be transparent to your customers and trading partners. They'll think they're connecting, let's say, directly to an SFTP server or HTTPS server, but instead they're connecting to the proxy service in Go Anywhere gateway, which is going to send that up to Go Anywhere in your private network. So it keeps the auditors happy by keeping those inbound ports closed and keeping those files out of your DMZ. There's a lot of job control capabilities in Go Anywhere. You can have multiple systems processing jobs. It does support clustering as well. But you can also set priorities on jobs. And let's say you have certain SLAs you need to meet for certain partners. You can give them higher priority so they get more attention from the CPU. We also came out with file transfer acceleration this year, where you could have Go Anywhere sitting on both sides of, let's say, a wide area network or another network where you need high performance, and it can break up the file into multiple chunks and send those over multiple UDP channels and put them all back together at the other side. So it's much faster than FTP. We've had customers tell us it's up to 10 times faster than FTP. So if you do have large files that need to be transmitted, that might be something you want to look at. So with that, I'm going to turn control over to Steve. And Steve, are you there?
Yep, I'm here, Bob.
All right, so I'm going to make you the presenter, and
Perfect.
he's going to give you a live demo.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Great job on the overview. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, perfect. So what you're seeing here is the login page to Go Anywhere MFT. I'm going to be using Chrome throughout the demo, but this could be IE, Firefox, or whatever your favorite browser is. We're also installed to a Linux platform. This could be AIX, Windows, and IBM I, or virtually any operating system. So when I sign in here, I'm going to use a user and password that has all roles. So I'm a product administrator, I'm a resource manager, project designer, security officer, auditor, all the different roles that we have inside the product, so I have kind of full access. Once you log in, you're taken to a dashboard. It'll remember the last dashboard that you visited. You can have multiple dashboards, each showing different data. Each dashboard basically has multiple gadgets into 1, 2, or 3 column layouts, so you can change the column layouts if you'd like. And for instance, just to kind of illustrate some of these gadgets, this one is showing us IP addresses that were recently blacklisted due to, in this case, a brute force attack. Basically, it's a user ID and password combination they're guessing, and we blacklisted it because we know it's malicious. We can also monitor for denial of service attacks and blacklist those as well. So I want to log in and see my most recently viewed items, if you will. So service statuses, I want to see the servers, make sure that they're up and running. I can see how many sessions are in between these servers. So again, these servers are listening for traffic 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for somebody like an employee, a trading partner, a customer, a vendor to upload and download files with your organization. Completed jobs, once you're running one of our workflow projects, they create a job and you can come in and find out the statuses of them. You can also create other dashboards. So in this case, I have 2 personal dashboards, but we also have some shared dashboards like this activity one. And this is showing me just overall stats. Like on the top left, I have the number of transfers uploaded and downloaded over the last week. I can see which users are my heavy hitters. So I can see that this user transferred 27,000 files in the last week. Some people use that for billing information. Some people also, for administration, they will find out users that are consuming the most disk space, because they might want to go after those users and say, hey, you're consuming a little bit too much. Maybe we can step that back a little bit. It also allows you to find out your peaks and valleys and kind of your usage patterns. So if you have a ton of file transfers, some customers, well over 400,000 transfers a day, at that point, it's really important to kind of make sure that they're spread out throughout the day for your network and operations. So in our case, we're not doing that many transfers, typically during business hours, but that allows you to kind of maybe see it and space it apart. Each one of these gadgets can be edited, so you can come in here, you can edit the gadget, you can change the title, you can change the date range, which is basically how much data to include in this gadget, as well as each one has different options, like maybe group it by the hour, the day of week, day of month, or month. Let's go back over to my personal dashboard here, my dashboard, and step through some of the quick links. So resources are a great way to define the connection information to your servers. So GoAnywhere is going to connect out to SFTP, FTP, databases, SNMP, all sorts of different servers in your organization, as well as servers defined at your trading partners, so other companies that you're exchanging with. So you're going to define those as resources. They'll contain like IP addresses, a host name, a user, a password, maybe an optional SSL certificate or an SSH key for encryption purposes. So you would specify that as a resource, and then you can reuse that multiple times inside of a project. So project is your workflow definition. It's going to be where you specify which files to send, or which files to encrypt, the databases to extract from. All of your workflow automation pieces will be inside of a project. Once you have them defined, you'll use our built-in scheduler. You can also use other scheduling tools like Robot or other ways to kick off projects. You can use triggers, so when a user does an action, like let's say uploads a file, then we can call a project to process that file contents. We have monitors, which are monitoring the file system. I'll show you an example of that. It's going to look for new, modified, or deleted files to automatically call a project to kind of loosely integrate different systems in your network. And then web users. So web users, there's 2 types of users inside of GoAnywhere. There's the admin users, and those are people like me right now going through the administrator interface to configure the product. Then there's web users. Those are going to be maybe thousands of employees and trading partners and customers, and anybody that you're exchanging data with typically would be a web user. And those web users are going to log into one of the services listed here, the HTTPS, AS2, FTP, SFTP, to upload and download files. Then we have reports and audit logs. So every action that a user performs is audited. So we're going to see every file transfer that they do. We're also going to see all administration actions logs. So anytime I come in here and change one of these items, I'm going to keep track of those changes for compliance and stuff. Then you can generate PDF reports off of those. So you can send them on to like your executive reports if you want to. You can have kind of like, I just need a daily chart of maybe issues inside the system to kind of clean up and monitor. So you can have your reports automated or run them interactively. Then we have completed jobs, which are auditing for projects. Every time a project runs, it creates a job, and it has a unique job number, so you can always go in and view the job details, who ran it, when, and what happened during that job. We also have enterprise-grade job queue management system. So you can have some job queues that are single-threaded for certain processes, maybe some that are specific for an SLA. Maybe you got to have high-priority jobs, and then some that are lower priority. So you can kind of dole out how you want your jobs to be distributed and ran. Okay, I'm going to step over to resources. And on the left side here, this is a vertical listing of all the different servers that we can connect to. So we have your Amazon S3 Cloud buckets. You have your AS2 servers. These are typically for retail partners like Walmart, for instance. But it could be any AS2 server. We are German certified, so you can use the client or server to send and receive EDI documents that way. Database servers, let's step into one of these databases. So a resource on a database is going to say, well, which driver do you want to use? We ship the most popular ones, which is going to be MySQL, Informix, Oracle, SQL Server. And then you can specify the JDBC URL. If the DBA doesn't know, the values to provide, go ahead and use our wizard. So this little ... button, you would select the database like MySQL, you would have the IP, the database name, and then generate the URL that way. Now when connecting to a database, we need a user and a password, so you'd specify that information there, and then you can click on the test button. So every resource has a test. It's a sanity check just to make sure all of the information you supplied is valid and it's ready for use inside of a project. Okay, so that one's good. Let's see, I'm going to skip through some of these resources. GoFast, that's our file transfer acceleration protocol. We actually just had a business partner recently tell us that they were able to get 700% faster speeds than SFTP using GoFast. So if you have multiple data centers or trading partners, all over the world, then file transfer acceleration is a really good protocol for that. Otherwise, one that's really popular is SFTP. So down here on the SSH servers, you can define out your SFTP locations, and these could be, again, someplace inside your organization or your trading partners. We can also do SSH. So in the event that you had, let's say hundreds of different Linux boxes, we could automate the distribution and of upgrades and running remote commands on those SSH servers remotely, which is cool. So if I step into the SSH server, you have an IP or host name, user, password, port, typical information to connect up to a server. As Bob was mentioning, we also have the ability to auto-resume transfers to kind of guarantee delivery. So in the event that a connection were to break, you can retry X number of times based on X number of seconds between each try. And if we can connect successfully, then we'll resume transferring where we left off. If after those retry attempts we can't connect, then it goes into our error handling logic, at which point we would send out email notifications. We can send out SNMP traps. We can log records to a database. We can do a lot of different things. On the SSH Keys tab, this is for two-factor authentication. Since this is over SSH, you can authenticate using an SSH key, private key file here, and the password to it. And speaking of keys, under the encryption menu, we have built-in key management for PGP, SSL, and SSH. So you can create new keys, you can import them, you can export them, you can, SSL's got a lot of options for, importing CSR requests and stuff like that. You can export them out to your trading partner, so full-blown key management for those three types of keys. And then on the algorithms tab, for those that are dealing with government agencies or are security conscious, you can pick which protocol to use. Like the Cipher Suite AES-256 is very common. You can also go into FTPS 142 mode, which basically flips the flag that we will automatically use just Cipher Suites that are NIST approved. So we got a FTPS 140-2 certified mode. Okay, so once you define your servers, then you're going to go into projects to define how you want to interact with those servers. On the left side here, we have our projects defined into different folders. So on the top, we have demo, development, support, sales, marketing. So what you're seeing, those are actually top-level domains because you can organize GoAnywhere to use multiple domains, and domains could be project-based, team-based, department-based, organizational-based. So in our case, we have a development team, we have a support team, and then we have users allocated to those domains. So if I were to log in as a user with just one domain, for instance, let's say somebody in support, they would come into here, they would see all of the same functionality, the same features and stuff, but they're limited to just people that are in support, just file transfers and activity for support. They can manage kind of their own realm inside of GoAnywhere. If they went over to resources, notice that now they can only see one resource. If they went over to workflows, they would only see projects for their domain. I'm going to switch back to all domains. So my user has the demo projects and development and so forth. In the Secure FTP folder, I'm going to show a sample project to get us started with the project designer. I'm going to look at SFTP put single file. So this project is going to simply transfer a file, and it's going to get you familiar with some project designer concepts. So here on the project outline, there's a project node, and it's going to say, let's call this module. A module is like a sub-procedure, a function. Basically, it's executing tasks sequentially inside of it. And a task is going to do some type of action, like encrypt a file, query some records from a database, maybe transfer a file to SFTP. To add tasks to your project outline, you simply go down to our component library, and let's see, let's go through here. Let's do SMS. So we'll send a text message. Drag and drop that up here. You would type in their phone number, and then you can send text messages from that way. So that's how you add tasks. Let me go back to the SFTP. Okay, so once you have a task that works with the server, the first question attribute will be the server to connect to. So this is going to be a drop-down list of the different resources you previously defined. So let's connect up to our production SFTP server. And then you can add sub-elements, which are like, do you want to get files? Do you want to put them? Do you want to delete some? In our case, we're going to put a single file. So on this task, it's going to say, let's take the source file. Now, the source file could be a static path like this. Basically, that means you went out to your network, you either typed in the path, or you browsed your network and selected a file that you want to include. Now, these could be onto WebDAV servers, network shares, which is SMB or CIFS, or even Amazon S3, or just a local file system, UNC pass, NFS mounts, wherever is considered to us local. Okay, so once you have your file specified, then we need to know the destination. So we're going to place it into the inbound folder on this SFTP server. We're going to change the file name because a lot of times when you're transferring files, people want like a date time stamp on it. So we're going to use our variable syntax, $ open curly brace, followed by a function to get the current date using the year, month, day format. Now, in the variable expression wizard, you can have all sorts of system variables. We can have a lot of functions like lowercase, uppercase, substring them, generate random numbers. You can even do math and comparison logic. So it's a very sophisticated expression wizard, but a lot of people are using it for simple things like give me the current date. So we're going to go ahead and place the current date on that file name, .pgp, and then the next task, we'll archive it. This is going to be a simple copy of this file over to this encrypted folder, and if everything goes well, the project's done. Now, each task has on error, so if there's an error on a task, let me see here. There we go. We're going to call an errors module. So this is where scripting, traditional scripting is very difficult to have error handling built into it. So we're going to call errors module. This module could do anything from SNMP traps, database inserts. It can call execute native commands. In our case, we're simply going to say, let's send an email. So we're going to send an email to the administrator of this project to say, this project, XYZ, failed. We're going to include the error message inside the actual body. And then we're going to attach the job log directly to the email. That way the administrator doesn't have to log in to see what happens. So let's go ahead and execute this. And again, this is going to generate a unique job number. And that's going to kind of associate it to the job that ran. And then I can view the job log, which is going to show me top to bottom. This user submitted this project, and we're running on a Linux server. And then ultimately, one file was uploaded successfully. And you can see orders with the date added to the file name here. And then we archive that file out. Okay, so pretty simple project to do an SFTP transfer. I'm going to kick it up a notch, and I'm going to show you one that does an FTPS download. So we're going to download a series of files from an FTPS server. We're going to encrypt them with PGP, and then we're going to SFTP them out to the trading partner. So minimize this here. And there we go. Okay, so a lot of times when you're moving files back and forth, you're going to need some type of temp folder to store the data. You're going to have files that you need to read or write or encrypt or decrypt or compress or decompress. So we're going to create a temporary workspace, and at the end of the project, we'll delete that workspace. On the FTPS task, we're going to say, let's get some files. So you're going to say download files. And rather than specifying a single file to download, we're going to add what we call a file set. Now, a file set is going to look at a directory. So we're going to say, let's include the base directory. We're not going to include subfolders. You can have optional sorting. And that's all you need to specify, or you can filter it further. So you can add wildcard filters, like give me all asterisk.txt files. You can add regular expression filters, which is going to look for complex file name patterns. You can add date filters, like give me all the files that have modified in the last 24 hours, or maybe that are older than a month. And you can add size filters, so any file greater than a certain size, like maybe a gig. So the nice thing is we can use this to kind of clean up remote systems. We kind of use it to monitor our networks to see if there's some files that are maybe purgeable, that they're large, unmodified. Can we kind of clean them up? In this case, for the trading partner, we're simply saying, let's get all asterisk.txt files and download them to our workspace. So this is going to go to the temp folder. And we may have one file, we may have 10 files, we may have a little bit more, so we need to keep track of those files that are downloaded using a variable. So we're going to keep track of them in this variable called files. We're also going to have a variable called file counts. The next item here is if file count is greater than 0. Now this is just illustrating an if block, but we don't necessarily need it. There's other options too, like you can add for loops. You can have for each loops, which is kind of unique. Like you can say for each file downloaded, do this for each file. You can say for each record in a database, do this process. You can have while loops. You can have do while loops, like do this process while this value is true. But ultimately, inside of our if block here, we're going to say encrypt files. So take those files that we downloaded from the FTPS server, encrypt them with PGP. The PGP, you can have multiple key rings, so specify which key ring that you want to encrypt with. And then you can add a public key. And those that are not familiar with PGP, basically you encrypt it with a public key. And then we send the file out to the trading partner. They decrypt it with their private key. You can also add a secret key, which adds a digital signature to the file to guarantee the identity of yourself as the encryptor. We're going to encrypt them, place them into the workspace, and add a PGP extension automatically to those. On the SFTP, we're going to upload the PGP encrypted files, and then we're going to send an email. This time, the email is going to go out to the business unit to say, hey, this process took place, everything's successful. Okay. Now, we can also execute native commands. So if this is on Linux, you can run shell scripts. You can run any other process on a Linux command. Same with Windows. It could be a batch script. It could be an exe. We can run CL. We can run RPG. We can do all sorts of things from a project if you needed to do further processing on it. On the AIR module, it's about the same, except this time we're also going to send a text message. Okay, so execute. We connect out to the FTPS server. We download a series of TXT files. We encrypt them with PGP. We SFTP them. We send email confirmation. Everything was successful. If there was an error, you'd see some red error message up top. If I view the job log, you can see that all the files with TXT were downloaded. We encrypted them and placed a PGP extension on them. We uploaded them to the SFTP server, and everything was delivered successfully. All right, one more project, then I'll move on here, is our database to Excel to zip. So sometimes the files don't actually reside on disk. The data is inside a database. So we're going to run a query against the system. This could be Oracle, SQL Server. We're simply saying, find me all the employees where they make over a certain salary, and store the records and columns inside of a variable called data. Now you can write out CSV, Excel, XML, and fixed with. So in this project, I'm going to say, take that data, generate a CSV file, also take that data and generate an Excel document. Now Excel has, color, formatting, titles, headers, so you can actually dress it up like like a report. So we're going to specify some of those options. We're going to zip both of those files together and then SFTP the zip file to our trading partner. Kind of gives them options if they want an Excel to look better, or if they just want a CSV to import that data into their database. You can have options, and it's really easy to add. So if I execute that, I forgot one item here. Let me step back. So what I need to do is exit and go into the advanced screen here. So execute advanced. When you have variables like that that are project-defined variables, you can pass them in at runtime. So now what you're doing is you're creating reusable projects. So let's say I wanted to run that project where any employee makes over 75,000. Execute and view the job log. I'm going to see that over 75,000, there's 474 records. If I went back here, I know I'm going fast, but a lot to cover here. 90,000. Let's execute that again. So what people can do is they can generate projects and pass in the partner to send it to, pass in the PGP key to encrypt it with, pass in the file that they want to encrypt, pass in part of the SQL statement. You can pass this in from schedules, monitors, triggers, from Java programs, CL. Any way you can call a project, you can pass in these variables. So it makes them very flexible.
Hey, Steve, one of the attendees just was wondering, how do you configure to just grab a specific file? I think you probably talked about that briefly, but if you could just show that project again.
Sure. So when you're putting a file, you can say something like, I want to go ahead and take this single file and then just specify which file. If you were to, let's see, put get files, you can go out to the SFTP server, browse the file system, and select the specific file to grab.
And you can also use a variable for the source or destination file.
Correct. Yeah, this could be like, let's say, variable source, and then pass in that path at runtime.
Correct. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Okay, so with projects, you're going to define them. They're centrally managed. It's on some Linux servers or Windows servers, VM, IBMI, whatever, but it's centrally managed at that point. You have all the access controls into GoDrive MFT. Then you can kick them off using our built-in scheduler. So you can have daily, weekly, monthly jobs. Pretty robust scheduler. You can also kick them off from RPG, CL, Robot Scheduler, other like Windows Scheduler and other scheduling tools. You can use our monitors. So in this case, we're going to monitor different folders. So anything placed into this outbound directory that is an EDI extension that's created or modified automatically will call a project to send those files outbounds. And then we also have other projects that, monitors set up that scan remote servers. Look at this SFTP server. Anytime there's a new file, go ahead and download it to our servers. So you can kind of sync with the remote servers back and forth. So we got monitors, we got triggers. Triggers are basically monitoring for user activity. So it's going to be like one of the most common use cases is upload successful. If a partner uploads a file, so in our case, if the username equals distributor and the file name equals orders.txt.pgp, call a project, automatically process that file. So that's kind of the whole workflow automation portion. There's a lot we can talk about it, but for now, unless there's questions about it, I'm going to switch over to the server side of it.
No, very good. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so that's let's go on to Service Manager. So services is really kind of synonymous with server. So we're going to have these different servers under the hood. We have an HTTPS server, AS2 server, FTP, FTPS, SFTP, and GoFast. Every one of them's an IP port listening for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for somebody to connect to it, like an employee, trading partner, to upload and download files. So each server, you can have your configuration for it. So you can go and configure like the SSL settings, the look and feel, the branded for like the web client. Also, what you're seeing here is two different physical systems. We have GasProd 1 and GasProd 2, and because we want to load balance our traffic, that allows us to handle peak loads that are large, as well as if I need to take down a system for maintenance, the other one's up and running to service our partners. We also have Go Anywhere Gateway sitting in front of these servers. So on the far right here, you can see there's 10 sessions over here, there's 3 over here, and we're actually load balancing between these servers, and that's using Go Anywhere Gateway. Okay, so once you have your servers defined, then you go into web users. Again, these are like employees or customers. So I'm going to go to my employee account. And we can synchronize all of your users with Active Directory. You can import them from CSV. You can import them from shadow files from Linux. There's a lot of options to create them. You can have them self-register their own accounts based on different security features, like if anybody at your companydomain.com registers, automatically approve them. If not, make them go through an approval process. So there's a lot of ways to get these accounts created to minimize any type of administration overhead. On the authentication, so how do you want your users to authenticate? They can be Go Anywhere, meaning we handle the user and password. They could be Active Directory based. They could be IBMI based, LDAP servers, or even RSA using like secure IDs. You have different authentication options. So you can do two-factor authentication with HTTPS. For instance, they pass in their user ID and password against Active Directory. Once that's successful, then do RSA secure ID and prompt them for some type of hard token. We can do certificate-based authentication, key-based authentication, and ultimately, once they're granted access, then what features are you going to give them? Which protocols can they come in as? So it's multiple different protocols to the same file system, and then you give them features like GoDrive, which is our file sharing and synchronization. We have secure folders, secure forms. I'll show those in just a second. On folders, this is where you're granting your users access. So if you're familiar with an FTP server, you log in, you see some type of directory listing. So this is going to be the directory listing that we're giving out to these users if they have that access. And you can get down to the granular permission level, upload, download, rename, delete. You can also spider it out to multiple different folders. So even if you're on Linux, you may give them IBMI folder locations or Windows folder locations. To the end user, it doesn't matter. They're just going to see a file system that you're going to be granting permission to. We also have IP filters. You can do 3 different layers. So there's a global IP filter, there's automatic blacklisting based on denial of service and brute force attack prevention, as well as even if they know the user and password, they have to be coming from a specific IP. We can also do time limits, AS2 settings, and so forth. Ultimately, you have a user that has a password that can get access to the system. So I'm going to go over to the web client, and this could be, they can come in through FTP, SFTP, GoFast, AS2. In this case, I'm just showing the HTTPS web client. This is branded, so you'd have your own URL, friendly URL. This is sitting inside your private network, so it's secure. It's hosted on-premise. You'd have your own logo, an optional disclaimer, and then you give your users and employees access to sign in. Okay, so inside the web client, based on the features that you're authorized to, you have some stuff like GoDrive, secure folders, secure mail, secure forms, as well as some account type options. I'm going to go to GoDrive first. GoDrive allows you to easily collaborate on files. So you can, let's say, create a bunch of folders, and inside those folders you can drag and drop upload. You can have different views, so maybe I want to see a smaller icon here. If you wanted to view it full screen, you can go into our media viewer. So we have, kind of like the Dropbox look and feel, if you would. Let me step back in there, and there's another thing I was going to show. The other thing that's really cool about it is it has a synchronization service, and it's not only for Windows, but it's for Mac clients, iPhone, iPad, Android. So I'm going to go to my local PC here, and here's my GoDrive client running on Windows. And let's go out to my folder location. It's actually mapped to my G drive. So G drive shows me the exact same folders I can see in GoDrive. Go into Demo, go into Photos, and I'm going to take that photo, and I'm going to copy and paste it. So basically, if you wanted to, let's say this is a Word document, you can just work locally. You don't even need to know that GoDrive's behind the scenes, really. But if I went over to the web client view and refresh this folder, I can see that that file was automatically synced to the server. We have built-in revision history. You can comment on them. And if somebody were to delete them, let's say delete, it goes into a trash bin, but that automatically syncs down to your PC as well. So then I go back over here and it syncs. So it's both bidirectional syncing, and it's also encrypted. So everything on my G drive is encrypted locally. So in the event that somebody lost their PC, somebody lost their phone or something, an administrator can remove their GoDrive access and it'll wipe all of their files. And in the event that they aren't able to wipe it, all these files are actually encrypted at rest, even though it seems like it's really simple just to edit the documents. Okay, secure mail. This is another feature where traditional mail is, well, one, it's not secure. Two, if files greater than a certain size, typically you can't send through it, or maybe it has a secure extension like a SQL or something that doesn't go through email. So that gets really tricky because then you have to set up FTPS, FTP, or some other accounts, and it's just time-consuming and it's confusing for especially employees. So this is where secure mail fits in. You can generate an email. So I'd say send it to this person. You can have large attachments if you want to. I can say, let's send this video out to this person. All the attachments and all the message body is encrypted. So you can have social security numbers, credit card numbers, whatever else you want. Everything's encrypted inside the database. And then we send an email out to the recipient. They will see a link. So let's password protect it. I'm going to include a password in here. Actually, let's generate it automatically. And they would have to click on that link, and then they would be redirected back to the server to download the files. We also have an Outlook plugin, so rather than using this interface that you're seeing, you can just use Outlook to send those emails. Secure folders. This is going to grant you the same file system that FTP, SFTP, GoFast, and AS2 would see, but it's through a web browser. So it's more interactive. You can drag and drop upload files. You can click on to download. You can spider out to different network locations. So I have S3 buckets. I have WebDAV servers internally. I have different reporting folders. Some of these are Windows. Some of these are Linux-based. And so you can go out and upload and download your files through there. Secure Forms is one of our newer features. It allows the administrator to configure input fields for a user to fill out. So in this case, let's import a CSV file, and I'm going to attach a file, demo files. So an administrator said, I need a process where people can upload a file easily into our databases. So as you can see here, that's all it is to the end user, but the administrator basically built a project to import those. You can also do it kind of reverse. So that same project I showed earlier, so rather than going into the admin side, I'm going to say I want to run it from here, and I want anybody over 75,000, generate that employee report. It calls a project. It generates an output file that I can download directly from the web client. So it's easier for your employees and stuff. Okay, so last thing I'm going to show you here is our logs. So audit logs is tracked for every interaction. So if I went to, let's say, HTTPS, because I was just doing stuff in there, I was downloading files, I was submitting forms. There could be some GoDrive activity that I recently did because I trashed a file, I uploaded a file. You can also go into administration, so I can see what users were modifying stuff. Like earlier, just a little bit before this demo, I gave my user the GoFast protocol. So you can see what it was and what it is now. So you have all activity logged from the administration as well as all file transfer activity. Then we additionally have a global search, so you can come in here and say, I want to find out all user activity from Steve, where *.pgp whoops, not Steve. I didn't do any PGP files. These are inside of a project. So you can search for specific terms or users. You can even filter by modules. So then you can kind of have like a Google-like search to find your file transfer activity. All this activity also gets fed into our reporting. So if you go to reports and you want to find maybe the top secure mail packages, or maybe you want to run our security audit report, which makes sure that you're compliant with PCI, you can run some of the different reports, or you can schedule these reports to run interactive or automated. Let's see, Bob, is there a bunch of questions coming through, or how are we looking there?
Right, I've been answering a lot of them as you've been talking. Thank you for that. I think just in the interest of time, we're going to just show you a couple other things here, and then we'll continue to answer questions through the control panel. So thanks, Steve, for your time there. That's a great demo. So let's just flip back here, and I'll flip this up. All right. So I did want to mention, I did mention that we do have commands for the various platforms. This is an example of a CL command called run project. So if you do set up workflows in GoAnywhere, those can again be run by external applications. Here's a CL example of running a project that was set up in GoAnywhere. You can monitor for messages. If you're on the Windows or Linux environments, you can use these commands to kick off projects in GoAnywhere as well. As David mentioned, you can pass in parameters. Like in this case, we're passing in like the file name and the folder path as parameters to GoAnywhere. So essentially, GoAnywhere is just sitting there on your network. It's taking in requests from your various applications on the network, be it, again, Windows, Linux, IBM systems. Those are sending those requests in. GoAnywhere is then going to connect out to the systems it needs to push and pull files, and then it will return a response back to your applications to let you know if it was run successfully. So I did want to mention that. Another thing I'd like to mention too is we have clustering, and I know we didn't really talk about that too much. So you can actually take two systems or more of GoAnywhere and put them together in a cluster, and they can talk to each other over this communications channel. They'll both be working off the same shared folder system, same shared database system, and so if one of those systems was to fail, the other systems in the cluster could continue to process transactions. And you can use our gateway not only as a proxy server in the DMZ, but it can also be a load balancer. So as transactions or sessions come in from your partners, it can load balance that over those systems within the cluster, those that are available. So a lot of our enterprise customers do like to implement clustering to give them the best high availability. With that, I think we're going to finish up here. Again, we want to stress that GoAnywhere can be used for both server-to-server as well as person-to-person or user-to-user type file transfers. It's, again, centralized auditing, centralized control, browser-based administration for all monitoring configuration in the product. And with that, I thank you for your time. Again, we'll hang on a little bit here, see if there's any other